Hello, this is Chris Farrell, and it is great to have you here. Welcome to this Fireside Chat that we are calling it, despite the fact that there is no fire, but that's just details. We've had lots of requests for this conversation with our CEO. ShipChain is on a mission to revolutionize the multi-trillion-dollar shipping industry and logistics industry, which is no small feat by utilizing blockchain technology. But what exactly does this mean? Well, we're going to dig in and find out, and how can all this be done, and can it even be achieved? We're going to dig into exactly all of that and more. The guy that came up with this whole idea, you can see him here on the screen, joins us now, our CEO of ShipChain, John Monarch. John, hi.
Hi there.
Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
Good to have you here, my man. I'm in LA as I speak to you right now. Whereabouts in the world are you?
Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, so you're Eastern time zone. I'm Pacific.
Yes, our primary development office, actually.
Is that where you are right now?
It is.
Okay. The most important question, of course, is can you understand my English accent?
Yeah, just fine. I don't think you can. I don't have a Southern accent of any sort.
I thought you were going to say for a second, what did you say? I am a little disappointed you're not wearing your Harry and Meghan t-shirt, by the way, but I'm going to let that slide. So John, you're super slammed. You're always traveling all over the world. I hear you interviewed all over the place. So I appreciate you carving out a bit of time of your day. What I want to do in a moment is I want to jump in and really explore the incredible things that you are aiming to do. Before we do that though, are you open for the next 60 seconds? I want to do a rapid 60-second quick fire round just to kind of get to know a little bit more about the CEO of ShipChain, John Monarch. Are you open to that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so 60 seconds, no right and wrong. I'm just going to throw random questions at you in no particular order. What was the last show that you binge watched?
Probably Anthony Bourdain's Parts Unknown.
Okay. It's great, isn't it? Mine was Narcos. Have you seen Narcos?
I haven't. I've heard a lot of good things about that.
Unbelievable. Are you a dog or a cat person?
Dog. I've got two personally.
Okay, two dogs. Do you prefer texting or do you prefer calling?
Texting, definitely.
Yeah. Who likes it when the phone rings these days?
Especially with all the spam calls out there right now.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I'll try and stop calling you so often. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Introverts or extroverts?
Bit of both. Sometimes I just like to get away.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. Important question here. Who would win in a fight between Batman and Superman? Oh,
Batman, by far.
Yeah, I agree. Do you know, fun fact, Batman is the only superhero with no superpowers. Did you know that?
It actually makes him one of my favorites, just so he's more realistic.
More human.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. Can you share with us one of your most favorite places in the world that you visited?
I really enjoy Tokyo. Honestly, I mean, Japan's probably one of the best places I've been, along with Hawaii.
Okay. Couple more questions. Can you share with us a great piece of advice that you've received in your life? Could be for business, could be personal, doesn't matter. I'm just interested in something that's really impacted you.
Yeah, when I was in high school, I had just gotten the position of drum major in my high school's marching band, and I was very worried that people weren't going to like me about it as a result of it. And someone told me it's, the biggest problem there is then you're not going to be a good leader if you're worried about being liked. You have to worry about, actually making good decisions rather than just trying to be everyone's friend.
That's funny you say that, because I read an article that you wrote recently on medium.com, and you talked about leadership, and you shared a quote that your dad said, something about just because you're the boss, you don't have to be the horse's ass.
Yeah, just you don't have to be a jerk if you're the boss, basically. I mean, you can be friendly, you can be relatable, but you still have to be, respectable.
Great quote from your dad. Is your dad still around, out of interest?
He's unfortunately not.
Oh, sorry, my man. Mine passed a few years ago as well, so I can relate to what you're saying. A couple more questions. What film made you cry?
Of all things, Interstellar.
That was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah, probably one of my favorites, if not my number one.
When he comes back and like 34 years has passed and you realize he's got these messages from his daughter, how impactful was that?
It was huge. And as a physics background, that, I really enjoyed it. It was very accurate. It was just a good all around movie.
Would you think any less of me if I said I cried in Dumbo?
I would not.
Okay. And final question, are you really a monarch? Do you have royal blood in you?
I have no idea. Been doing the genealogy to take a look. Just got my, like the DNA tests to see where everything's back, goes back to. And Not a whole lot of surprises, but a few that I didn't know about.
That's so interesting. I love doing that. Okay, so we know a little bit more about you. And John, what I want to do right now is I want to switch gears for the next 15 minutes or so, and I really want to dig into, really the main reason that we're doing this fireside chat, and that is what you and the ShipChain team, of course, are aiming to do. And some of it is pretty bold disruption to really an archaic industry. So let's jump in. And let me frame this by saying, I know that you get asked the following question many times because I've heard you ask this on podcasts and various interviews, but I'd still like to probe you on this a little bit to kind of set up nicely what we're about to dig into in this conversation. Mm-hmm. Really, I'd frame this by saying all successful businesses have one thing in common, of course, as you know, and that is that they solve some sort of problem. So can you share with us in a couple of sentences, what is this problem that ShipChain is aiming to solve?
Probably the biggest is just the lack of visibility across the entire shipping industry. I mean, the fact that you can move millions of dollars worth of inventory and it can just disappear at times where you don't know where it is, who holds onto it. You might be working through a broker and you don't know which shipping carrier, what kind of vehicle it's on at the time, where it is. It's just a huge problem. And it's surprising that in 2018, with all these advancements, that can still happen.
So the problem is there's no one platform to make transport and logistics more essentially secure and transparent. And that's obviously what you're aiming to solve.
Right. Everyone uses their own systems and none of them, of course, talk to each other without a lot of extra work on top. And many times that extra work is performed by brokers.
I'm curious to know, how did you know that this was a problem that even existed?
My background is in shipping, actually. So I worked with and owned a fulfillment center. We actually had it happen to us where just inventory from another country was being in the process of being imported and just disappeared.
You're joking.
No idea where it was. The client blamed us. We of course had no idea. And it just appeared at our truck dock one day. It was unbelievable that it had happened.
Is that interesting as well, how you use a problem and actually rather than kind of stress out about it, although I'm sure it was stressful, you're thinking, okay, this is actually an opportunity to come up with a solution here.
Right. And it did take a little while. I mean, because this was a couple of years ago and, blockchain was still very early on, but, really having that light bulb moment, last year, I would say, or early last year was pretty important.
Do you remember the first time you even heard the word blockchain?
I do. I was actually just finishing up college because I was a computer science minor. So I had heard about, some people talking about Bitcoin and blockchain and just like the first very early iterations of it when everything had just started kind of rolling about it.
So what year would this have been the first time you heard the word blockchain just mentioned casually in conversation?
Right, 2009.
Wow, that's really ahead of the curve. I was back with some friends in London recently and talking about blockchain. Nobody's even heard of the term blockchain.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible.
It is still very early on and, it's still kind of an unknown to a lot of people, but it kind of came with the territory of being around a lot of computer science majors.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with you. We're certainly in the infancy and on the starting blocks in this business, which is a great place to be. Mm-hmm. So in many ways, the freight and the logistics industry, I think it's fair to say, is quite an archaic industry. Your message, one of your few messages, is to integrate, not replace. I've heard you say this a few times in various interviews. Can you just expand upon that for everyone watching? What do you exactly mean when you say integrate, not replace?
So everyone uses different systems right now. They've got ERP, which stands for Enterprise Resource Planning Systems. And that's basically a platform that a lot of large companies use to control their supply chains, their inventory, their manufacturing process. There's a lot of different ones out there, ranging from like SAP to NetSuite to there's proprietary ones that companies build themselves.
Okay.
We're not asking anyone to throw those systems out that they may have spent millions of dollars on the setup, on the maintenance, the training, maybe even in the billions for some of these larger companies. But we want to add like kind of a base layer that will talk to everyone else's so that you can have more information.
So related to that, ahead of this call, I did some research. I found some facts and figures that I'm sure you've heard many times. The shipping industry, I'm reading them here, worldwide, globally, is worth about 10 trillion. It's continuing to grow, expected to hit 20 trillion within a few years. Billions of tons of goods move back and forth every day from ocean logistics, such as containers, trucks, freights on airplanes, to even basics in between like single pallets. So are you trying to tell me You try. I sound like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. Are you trying to tell me? Are you trying to tell me that there's no one unified system, despite the fact that it's a $1 trillion industry, that allows for independent tracking?
There's really not. There are some document standards. There's a standard called EDI, and a lot of people in shipping like to joke it's the standardless standard, because there are multiple different agencies that are tasked with maintaining the EDI standard, which stands for Electronic Data Interchange. The concern there is that, first off, it was first developed in the 1940s for the Berlin airlift, so it's archaic. And even though it's supposed to be standardized, there are a lot of differences in between the types of documents and the way that you set them up. So it's just really outdated, and I can't think of a single person in the industry that enjoys using it. So that's something that we wanted to work on as well.
And I suppose also, timing is everything. Until really a few years ago, until the advent of blockchain, this isn't even something you could have explored to create in the first place.
No, it would have been really almost impossible, I'd say. I mean, blockchain opened up a lot of doors, especially public blockchains, because you have to think that even after we're all long gone, the system can continue to operate.
We should also mention as well that done correctly, ShipChain will make this is almost like a secondary benefit, but it's going to make a huge dent in the fraud and the theft challenges that I believe account for about, is it 30 billion a year?
That's in the United States alone. There's 30 billion of fraud and theft in cargo movements. And a lot of that happens at a point of a handshake. So when there's a transfer of cargo is usually where a lot of the problems take place. So you have to think that maybe one party, blames the other. You don't really know who had it at the time. There was a theft, or there was just a transfer problem. Having an insight into what actually happened and whose fault it is, not only places the blame correctly, but in removing the blame from an incorrect party, it reduces insurance liability, and in the long run will reduce cost for the more good actors in the system.
And of course, you had personal experience of this a few years ago yourself.
Exactly, and it's something that, for instance, truck drivers in the U.S., if they own their own vehicles, they get blamed with, if there's a problem that happens in equipment, and they're a small business.
That could kill them.
Exactly, and they're having to file insurance claims, their rates go up, or it puts them out of business.
Another term I've heard you use quite often in conversation in interviews is track and trace. Could you expand upon exactly what that means?
Certainly. So tracing is going backwards in the movement, so looking back at what had happened in the past, where it came from. Tracking is looking forward. Where is it going? What's the process? Where is it getting scanned? So it's just the different levels of visibility within the movement of the supply chain.
I see. So I guess therefore, at its heart, some of the biggest problems in the industry are due to tracking and tracing. Right,
and sometimes even just in existing systems that have visibility to them. It's funny, like sometimes you'll ship a package with the Postal Service, for instance, and this is just a consumer example, but I've seen it where the package doesn't get scanned at all, and then a week later it suddenly delivers, and there's no visibility into what actually happened.
So I'm guessing at the moment, you mentioned brokers a little while ago. Can you explain exactly what a broker is at the moment, and is this something that eventually will be replaced and not needed?
So brokers, in the context of the shipping industry, they've got all the contacts for finding these, independent truckers, small companies, even large companies, and they go out and find the companies that have stuff to move, and they're the ones that are brokering loads, so to speak. Which I know that's kind of recursive, but they are. Let's say I've got 2 pallets to move. There's a truck here that has 2 pallets worth of space. They're going to find that truck and then match the load. Or full trucks, or it's like there's a truck that's going from Albuquerque to Chicago and there's a load that needs to be picked up. So they do a lot of what's called backhaul loads, where once it reaches the destination, the trucker obviously wants to find something to come back to make more money on.
So will ShipChain essentially replace the need for brokers?
Brokers will be able to use our system, but people in the system will be able to work without brokers. So it's entirely up to them if they choose not to. But at the same time, it is not a requirement.
So we're talking to John Monarch, the CEO of ShipChain. John, you mentioned earlier in this conversation that we want ShipChain, we want to integrate, not replace. Mm-hmm. Isn't ShipChain's success going to be directly related to how many companies you can get on board? And kind of my follow-up question to that is there's really, I see two challenges. Firstly, you're going to have to explain to most people what blockchain is. And secondly, explain how ShipChain kind of sits on top of blockchain. How's that been received so far?
So far, so good. A lot of the freight industry is very interested in blockchain. But one benefit here is we're trying to approach it from the idea of people want to know what the benefits are, because they may have heard the term, but they don't really know how they can tangibly use it. And we're trying to show them where it can actually be used and what it can do, rather than just diving into the weeds in the technology itself. For the adoption strategy, it's going to take two different sides. So we're having to work from the top down with these large scale companies, freight carriers, large retailers, and from the bottom up, that's working with the people actually who are on the ground, the boots on the ground, so to speak, the truck drivers who need to use the system and really would see some benefit from it as well, and having them on board.
Gosh, it's such a huge, exciting undertaking that you're exploring. It really is massive, isn't it?
It's pretty large, and we went into this
understatement. It's pretty large. It's pretty large.
There's a lot of angles that we have to attack it from, but we've got the right team on board to make sure that we do.
So I've got a few more questions to throw out at you for about another 7, 8, 10 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
So if we let's just carry on. This is so interesting. Thank you for sharing this, John. So you've articulated very well that the problem that ShipChain wants to fix. We understand that ShipChain will integrate and not replace with existing systems. So that makes sense. So I want to get a bit geeky now. Is that cool with you?
Certainly.
Bring it on. Can you talk us through as simply as you can, how ShipChain will actually work? Because there are a few different things, aren't there, that ShipChain can actually do?
Right. So to get really, dive into the tech side of things, there's the smart contracts, which are on the Ethereum blockchain. They will do, 4 different things. One is the load contract. That is for actually tracking freight movements. So in the process of them actually moving, verifying that the load was created, it moved, all of the, the tracking information, the GPS information, what have you, and then finally delivery and completion. There's the profile contract, which is just how it sounds. Everyone in the ecosystem will have a profile. So the drivers, the carriers, the shippers, brokers, just like on any other system where you'd actually have a profile, just sort of your account. There's the market contract, and that's for matching up all of these different companies together in an automatic way. So it's like, I've got a truckload that needs to move from here to here. Let's find a company that is looking for that type of thing. And then the 4th is the review contract. So everyone in the ecosystem needs to be able to know who they're working with. And there's really that lack of visibility right now. So for instance, let's say I'm a truck driver and I'm going to pick up a load at warehouse ABC. Warehouse ABC is making me sit for 2 hours and wait to pick up that load. So it just messed up my entire day, my work schedule, my log hours. They're all shot. It's terrible. So I want to leave a negative review on these guys. And currently, the way things work, there's no way of knowing that.
Right.
No other drivers could see that. So in a way, it's Yelp for the logistics industry, but in a decentralized manner.
So essentially, as far as I see it, at the blockchain level, by integrating the shipping platform, you're using smart contracts that exist on the Ethereum blockchain, and there's 4 separate contracts that kind of make that up.
Right. Along with that, we are developing a sidechain that is essentially a fork of Ethereum. And what that will do is make it so that heavy transaction volume on the Ethereum mainnet is actually very expensive and can be kind of slow. We are confident that they're going to solve the scalability issues, but at the same time, we have to have, for the scale of the logistics industry, a system in place to scale now. So this side chain that we're doing is essentially just another blockchain off to the side where all of the transit info takes place. So anything like GPS info, load posting would occur on the side chain and then post back the final details to the Ethereum mainnet.
God, your coders must be loving this. That's such an incredible thing to create that doesn't even exist at the moment.
It is, and it's a lot of one of my favorite things that I like to say is back when I was getting my degree in physics, it wasn't about problem solving. It was about knowing how to set the problem up in the first place. And that's actually probably the much harder part.
So let's get really specific here. Could you briefly talk us through a scenario of how ShipChain would work from a practical term? So imagine my business moves things. I have a business and I move Harry from One Direction t-shirts. I think it's going to do well. I think it's a big business. So I have my merchandise in my warehouse in China, laptop covers, life-size paintings, you name it. Anything to do with Harry from One Direction, I ship around the world. How would I use ShipChain to enhance my business?
So let's say you're a small to medium-sized business. That's the first step, is you'd be able to come on the ShipChain website, book with a carrier seamlessly, automatically match with them, and have that visibility and full traceability and auditability of being all of that tracking information posted to the blockchain itself. So you'll be able to get real-time pricing, quotes from all these different carriers, and really reduce the cost, since you're going to be working with them in a direct way through ShipChain. So ShipChain will charge for the service, but it'll be significantly less than what people are used to as a result of being much more automated. That way, you're saving on your cost of shipping, you're saving on a lot of your different intermediary costs, and you're just able to not worry about it. It's like, I can see where everything is. I know the company I know who it's with at the time.
Harry from One Direction thanks you, John.
Larger businesses, it's going to be quite different. Many of these companies own their own fleet of vehicles, be it trucks or airplanes or ships or what have you. We want to help provide an intelligence layer to them so that they can optimize their supply chains and have that internal visibility and document management. So one of the concerns that has been addressed by our team is actually documents in full. A lot of people want to ask if documents are stored on the blockchain. Well, they're not. So it's not really, you don't have that final, permanent record. But at the same time, these companies have retention policies that prevent them from infinitely storing documents. They have to delete everything after 5 years. So our solution is what we're calling vaults, that you store the actual document off chain, and then a fingerprint hash is posted to the blockchain itself. So you can verify it was never changed.
So we're getting geeky, but that is good to know. So essentially, to sum that up, if you're a larger enterprise and you have your own you probably have your own logistics management internally. We would help to integrate that within the ShipChain platform by using their own systems. Is that correct?
Right, and pulling information from their existing fleet, for instance. So, as well as public data. There's a lot out there that is applicable here. So, for instance, let's say you have a fleet of trucks, and they're refrigerated trucks because you're moving food. Well, let's say if your trucks leave at 7 a.m. instead of 8 a.m., the temperature will be lower outside, so you won't have to use as much fuel to run the refrigerated trailer. Right. That way we can get that data, analyze it, work with weather conditions and more. So that's just a sample of like an intelligence type of offering.
So I suspect that one of the key components of ShipChain's success is obviously getting new customers to come aboard and use ShipChain. Can you share with us how receptive new customers are being and what sort of response you're getting when you reach out to people?
We're seeing a very positive response, and that's, I think, coming from just showing people what the benefits are over just diving into the tech like the first minute of a conversation. People are intrigued by the tech, but they want to, they like the buzzword of blockchain, for instance, but which helps in our favor, but at the same time, they want to know the benefits before they know all the deep stuff.
I have a couple more questions, maybe 3 or 4 I want to throw out at you, then we'll wrap up this fireside chat. So appreciate your time, John. Let me ask you, and let's switch gears of action, the SHIP token. What exactly is the SHIP token?
So the token is for use on the actual network. That will offer various parts, but first off, to even use the network, you have to use the SHIP token. So while ShipChain on the web will allow for payment in US dollars, for instance, all transactions on the blockchain have to occur in the token itself.
Okay, makes sense. There's a lot of talk, particularly at the time of you and I having this conversation, there's a lot of talk online about new blockchain companies that are failing. I read something the other day, something scary, like 90% of companies that raised contributions in 2017 and 2018 no longer in existence, which seems very high. I know that ShipChain are continually adding team members, office space, customers. So my question really, I guess, is how can ShipChain avoid the path that many blockchain companies seem to unfortunately be going down?
Responsible management and a focus on the actual platform itself, making sure that we're not wasteful. We're bringing on the right team that we have for everything from the actual software development side to sales and marketing. Sales and marketing are crucial, and a lot of people forgot about that initially, except to do their white papers and whatever.
Yeah.
But now it comes down to actually hitting the pavement and making sure that you're talking to the right businesses that are interested in buying your services.
I have two more questions. I don't know if you can answer this. I appreciate it if you can't, but let me ask you, can you tease us with any future announcements or developments?
We're going to have some additional open sourcing here soon. We've kind of talked about that a bit, but we're sticking to the roadmap pretty well, and we expect to see some pretty big announcements here in the next several months.
If you had to sum up the mission of ShipChain in one sentence, what would that be?
Getting all actors in the supply chain to cooperate with each other effectively.
I'm going to have that put on a t-shirt. Forget the Harry from One Direction t-shirts. That's my new business. John Monarch, I really appreciate you carving out a bit of time out of your day to answer these questions. It's great to get to know you a bit more on a personal level as well. Very excited about what you're doing, and thrilled to spend some time with you. Thank you ever so much.